I'm Brenda, a 30-year-old single person who finds it difficult to find love. I needed a night out after splitting up with my unfaithful ex, and Lisa's party looked like the ideal getaway. Away from drama, my existence is fairly straightforward. I own a small, elegant boutique in the city where I sell designer clothing to customers who don't bother to check price tags. As I entered Lisa's crowded apartment, the noise of the crowd and the music were so loud that I could not hear my own thoughts. Lisa excitedly grabbed my arm as I was surveying a peaceful area and grabbing a drink. "Brenda, you succeeded. Look, I want you to get to know this person. Finance stuff and all that, he's right up your alley," she exclaimed over the music as she pulled me through the crowd of revelers. Before I realized it, I was grinning cheekily in front of a tall guy. He gave off the impression of someone who was confident in his wealth and wouldn't hesitate to share it with you. "This is Nathan, Brenda." Lisa gave us a wink and said, "Nathan, meet Brenda. She owns the choicest clothing store downtown." Before I could object, Lisa departed. Nathan gave me a hard handshake and a questioning look. A clothes store? Really? Such sounds like a great time. "I work in finance myself, doing corporate investments and all that kind of stuff," he continued in a smooth, assured voice. "Indeed is fantastic. I get to meet a lot of interesting folks," I said, trying not to roll my eyes as I took a sip of my drink. Talking business was the last thing I wanted to do. "So why haven't I seen you around earlier?" "A stunning woman like you, I wouldn't forget," he said, drawing nearer than necessary. I stepped back and arched an eyebrow, likely due to the fact that I spend more time examining fabric samples than attending financial galas. "What is your narrative?" "Big deals and all the numbers." He let out a real, hearty laugh. "Quite a bit. I'm off work tonight, so it's not as glamorous as it seems." "What do you think is the worst thing about having your own company?" "Inventory days and holiday returns," I said, finding myself becoming more receptive to the conversation. "And you? What catches you off guard in the finance industry?" "Rules and the never-ending paperwork." "Anyway, enough about work. What are your hobbies?" With a deceptive smile, Nathan inquired. I was talking to a finance guy at a loud party about things I hadn't planned to talk about, like my love of vintage jazz recordings and thrift store excursions. Nathan was truly involved in the conversation, asking questions and giving personal anecdotes on where to discover the best music venues in the city. He wasn't just listening. The party was coming to an end before I realized how quickly the evening had gone. Nathan turned to face me, then back to his watch. I had no idea that I would talk to someone so fascinating for the entire evening. "Can I see you once more?" I wavered, memories of our recent breakup racing through my head. "I'm not really looking to jump into anything new," I said. "No demands. To put it mildly, it will include exchanging more music and possibly even some coffee." He made a suggestion. "I know of a restaurant that hosts live jazz on weekends." It was like entering a vortex of jazz concerts and spontaneous city walks when I started dating Nathan. Even though I had told him right away that I wasn't seeking to become serious about anything, our time together seemed to erode my resolve a little bit each day. We had been dating for a while. Fall was beginning to bite, and one evening Nathan called and said, "Hey Brenda, put on that fancy red dress you love so much. I'm going to surprise you." As long as the surprise involves some decent food, you've got yourself a deal, I said, curious. "I'm going hungry." He laughed. "Trust me, you'll want to be there." We crossed paths outside my shop. He appeared as though he had just stepped out of a magazine as he leaned against his automobile. As he opened the passenger door for me, he said, "Ready for that surprise?" He kept the whereabouts a secret while we traveled, entertaining me with constant banter that made me feel both relaxed and a little nervous. To last, we arrived to a quaint little jazz club downtown, the kind with few tables and dim lighting. We followed the host to a private area close to the stage. But Nathan's focus was entirely on me, not the band. He leaned in and whispered, "Brenda, I know you said you wanted things light, but I've got to be honest with you." Midway during a melancholic saxophone solo. Oh yeah. As I took a taste of my drink, my heart began to beat faster. Honest about what? About this. He extracted a tiny velvet box from inside his jacket. When he opened it, a tasteful, understated ring caught the gentle light. "Brenda, I adore you so much. I want to do more than simply hang around and go on dates. I'm craving more. With you, I want everything. Are you going to marry me?" I remained silent for a while. His sincere and optimistic expression was all that was visible as the music gradually faded away. That's when my pragmatic side came out. "This is huge, Nathan. You are aware of my fear of plunging back into the depths." I know. He grabbed my hand in a hurry to comfort me. "But consider this. We work really well together. You chuckle at my jokes. We both can't dance to save our lives. And I act as though I understand art because you do. What more is required?" In spite of myself, I laughed. Maybe a bit more practice on the dance floor. Anything with a smile. So what do you say? I did want this, us, a future, everything, as I looked into his eyes. At last I responded, yes, feeling more at ease saying it than I had anticipated. "Yes, I'll marry you." After Nathan put the ring on my finger, we celebrated the only way we knew how. By staying late into the night, discussing everything and nothing, and beginning to plan our next trip together. The next day, Nathan was eager to introduce me to his mother, Mrs. Harper. We met for brunch at a quaint little cafe she loved. Right off the bat, Mrs. Harper was all smiles and open arms. "Oh, Brenda, I'm so thrilled Nathan found someone like you. I just know we're going to be great friends," she said as we settled into our seats. She began chatting away, filling me in on all the little details of Nathan's life. "You know, he absolutely loves lasagna. I must give you my recipe. And if you really want to spoil him, make him his favorite chocolate pecan pie. He's just like his father, can't resist a good pie." The brunch went by in a blur of laughter and shared stories, making me feel a little more part of Nathan's world, a world I was slowly but surely starting to love. It had been quite the reveal taking Nathan to the house where I grew up. It's this big old place that looks like it came straight out of a storybook, all thanks to my dad's knack for playing the stock exchange. When we pulled up in the driveway, Nathan's eyes popped out of his head. "Wow, this place is incredible," he exclaimed, looking around like a kid in a candy store. "Yeah, Dad's done well for himself," I said, trying to play it cool, even though I was proud of where I came from. Inside, Nathan was polite, but I caught him more than once checking out the finer details of the house's decor and the art on the walls, even asking my dad about some of the antiques. It wasn't all bad, though. My parents seemed to like him, especially when Dad and Nathan started talking money and investments. My mom pulled me aside while the guys chatted. "He seems like a good man, Brenda," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "Very attentive, isn't he?" "Yeah, he's great." I smiled, though part of me wondered if his interest was more in the lifestyle my family had than in me. I shook off the feeling, not wanting to judge too harshly too soon. Later, as we were leaving, Nathan couldn't stop talking about the house. "One day, I'd love a place like this. Imagine the parties I could throw, the people I'd host," he mused, already daydreaming. I nudged him lightly, bringing him back to earth. You mean the kind of home we could build for our kids, right? Of course, that's what I meant, he corrected quickly with a sheepish grin. Our kids would love it, wouldn't they? Definitely, I agreed, though his initial comment lingered in my mind longer than I wanted it to. Fast forward to today, our wedding day, and all those jitters and doubts seemed trivial compared to the joy of the moment. We decided on a simple ceremony at a local garden. It was intimate, just close family and friends, no big spectacle. As I walked down the aisle, seeing Nathan waiting for me, all my worries melted away. His smile was all I needed to reassure me of our future together. After we were declared husband and wife, the celebration began. It was laid back, just how we wanted it. We danced, laughed, and enjoyed the company of our loved ones. During the reception, my dad clinked his glass for a toast. To Brenda and Nathan, may your life together be as beautiful and enduring as this day. Remember, the best things in life aren't things. They're the moments and memories you create together. As the party carried on into the evening, I felt a profound sense of contentment. Whatever uncertainties the future held, we were ready to face them together. I was ready to face them. With Nathan by my side, life after the wedding was a whirlwind. Nathan and I were settling into married life, adjusting to each other's habits and routines when we were hit with a curveball. My dad, who had always been the pillar of strength in our family, got sick, really sick. It was cancer, and it came out of nowhere, or so it seemed. We spent a lot of time at the hospital, and during one of those visits, Dad decided to have a heart-to-heart with me. Nathan was there too, fetching coffee down the hall. When he returned, he found us whispering seriously and sat down, his face etched with concern. Brenda, there's something important I need to tell you, Dad said, his voice weaker than I remembered it ever being. He took a deep breath, grasping for every bit of strength he could muster. I've made some decisions about the estate. You're going to inherit $3 million. The room felt silent for a moment, even with the constant beeps and murmurs of the hospital around us. I didn't know what to say. It was a lot of money, a life-changing amount. Nathan, who had just sat down with the coffees, almost choked on his drink. Wow, that's a lot of money, he stammered, trying to keep his composure. I could see the wheels turning in his head, and something in his expression shifted. It was subtle, but it was there, a flicker of something that wasn't just surprise. It looked a lot like calculation. Yeah, it's a big responsibility, I responded, feeling suddenly very tired. It's not just about the money. It's about keeping Dad's legacy alive, making sure we manage everything responsibly. Dad nodded, looking relieved that I understood the weight of his decision. I trust you, Brenda. You know what's important. Nathan quickly added, Of course, we'll take care of everything, sir. It's what's best for our future, right, Brenda? I noticed the weight in his statement and felt a twinge of discomfort. This was suddenly about us, not just me. Yeah, sure, I said, but my mind was racing. This wasn't how I wanted this conversation to go. After that day, things changed. Nathan started talking more about investments, real estate, things we could do with the inheritance. One night over dinner, he brought it up again. So I was thinking about the money. He began, not wasting any time. We should start looking into some properties, maybe even consider some high-yield investments. I was pushing my food around my plate, not really hungry anymore. Nathan, can we slow down a bit? This isn't just free cash to throw around. It's my dad's hard-earned money. We need to be careful, think things through. He looked a bit taken aback, but recovered quickly. Of course, I get that. I just think it's a good opportunity to grow our assets, make sure we're set for the future. The words hung in the air, heavy and a bit too presumptuous for my taste. Yeah, I know, but let's just handle one thing at a time. Okay. My dad's still here, and that's what matters now. Nathan nodded, but the eager glint in his eye didn't match his agreeable tone. Sure, Brenda, whatever you think is best. The weeks following Dad's passing were some of the hardest I'd ever lived through. The world seemed to move on, but I was stuck, my grief a constant shadow. Nathan and his mom, Mrs. Harper, were around a lot, supposedly to help out. One night, their true colors showed through in a way that rocked me to my core. It was late, and I couldn't sleep. Too many thoughts, too much sadness. Mrs. Harper had been all sweet and comforting, hovering around me with hot teas and sympathetic smiles. Brenda, dear, you look exhausted. Why don't you take one of these sleeping pills? It'll help you rest, she suggested, holding out a small pill. Okay, I'll do that, I muttered, not keen on the idea. I didn't want to miss a moment. I didn't want to blur the edges of my memories of Dad with drug-induced sleep. She shrugged, placing the pill on the kitchen counter. I'll be in the living room if you need anything. I nodded, pretending to head to my room, but something felt off. Curiosity, or maybe intuition, nudged me to stay awake, to listen. I crept back towards the living room, the floor cold under my feet, my heart pounding in the silence. Their voices were hushed but heated. I paused at the edge of the room, hidden by the darkness. Are you sure she took sleeping pills? She's been so stubborn lately. Nathan's voice was frustrated and sharp. Mrs. Harper's reply was smooth like honey. Give it time. She's vulnerable, grieving. Now's our chance to get things moving. That money should be in your account, not just sitting there. Yeah, and soon. I'm tired of playing the supportive husband. Once we get the cash, I can finally move on, maybe find someone younger, more fun. The air in my lungs froze, my heart skipped beats. This was not the man I married. This was a stranger speaking so coldly, so calculatingly. His mother chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. Just make sure I get my share. A new house, perhaps. That cute little convertible we saw the other day. Of course, Mom, you'll get whatever you want. Brenda's too dumb to figure it out before we clean her out. I felt sick, my hands trembling. How could I have been so blind? The love, the marriage, it was all a setup. Quiet as a shadow, I backed away, needing space to think, to breathe. I went to my room, locked the door, and sat on the bed, my mind racing. They were plotting against me, planning to strip me of everything. Morning came, and I acted as though nothing had happened. At breakfast, Nathan and his mother exchanged glances, their smiles too sharp, too knowing. Nathan brought up the inheritance again. Brenda, we really should start thinking about that investment. It's what your dad would have wanted for us to secure our future. His words made my stomach turn, but I kept my face neutral, my voice calm. I'll think about it, Nathan. Let's see what the lawyers say about the best way to handle everything. The days following my father's funeral were some of the hardest I'd ever had to pretend through. I played the part of the devastated daughter to a T, all while watching Nathan and his mother make plans for a future funded by my inheritance. His mother wasn't even trying to hide it anymore, openly browsing for new houses and cars on her laptop in the living room, as if the money was already hers. Meanwhile, Nathan was barely home. He stayed late at work, came home later than usual, and even when he was around, he was glued to his phone. One evening, as he was taking a shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand next to our bed. Without thinking, I glanced at the screen and saw a message pop up from some woman. It wasn't just friendly, it was flirty. I felt a weird mix of anger and relief. Anger because of the betrayal, but relief because it just proved what I already knew. A cheater in one part of life is a cheater in all parts. That weekend, I told Nathan I needed to clear my head and visit my mom. He barely looked up from his phone, just nodded and mumbled something about taking all the time I needed. Driving to my mom's place felt like escaping a prison. As soon as I saw her, the weight of everything started to lift. I told her everything. The overheard conversation, Nathan's late nights, the messages. I laid it all out. Mom was curious at first. That rotten scoundrel. She exploded, pacing the kitchen, playing happy families while plotting behind her back. But then her anger turned to laughter, a deep rolling laugh that filled the kitchen. Oh, Brenda, they think they're so clever, but they've got another thing coming. Just wait until the wills read. They won't know what hit them. Her confidence was infectious. For the first time since that awful night, I felt like maybe things would turn out all right. So we just wait. That's it. That's it, she confirmed. Let them make their plans. They're building castles in the air, and we're about to bring them right down to the ground. Back at home, Nathan was exactly where I left him, phone in hand, probably texting that woman. But I didn't care anymore. I had something they didn't, a plan and the truth on my side. I went to bed that night, not with a heart heavy with dread, but with a spark of strategy and the anticipation of justice soon to be served. The day to read my dad's will finally arrived, and you could cut the tension in the lawyer's office with a knife. Nathan and his mom were practically buzzing with excitement, thinking they were about to become filthy rich. I sat there, feeling like I was about to watch a show, knowing full well what the finale would be, thanks to my mom's hint. We all gathered in the small, stuffy office, the air thick with anticipation. Nathan kept glancing at his watch, and his mom was tapping her foot nonstop. You'd think they were waiting for a lottery draw the way they were carrying on. The lawyer, Mr. Jenkins, cleared his throat and opened the thick folder in front of him. Thank you all for coming today. As per Mr. Thompson's wishes, I will now read the last will and testament. Nathan leaned forward, practically on the edge of his seat. His mom whispered, "Here we go," under her breath, rubbing her hands together like she was about to receive her birthday present. Mr. Jenkins began with the usual legal jargon, but soon got to the part everyone was waiting for. To my daughter Brenda, I leave the sum of $3 million. Nathan's mom let out a little squeal, and Nathan shot me a look that was meant to be comforting, but came off as smug. I just stared straight ahead, impassive. Mr. Jenkins continued, however, it must also be noted that along with this inheritance, there are debts incurred by Mr. Thompson amounting to $4 million. The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Nathan's face went from smug to shocked to pale in a matter of seconds. His mom was furious. This must be some mistake. We need to see the documents, the proof. Mr. Jenkins, ever the professional, started handing out copies of the financial statements and debt notices. Everything is documented here. If you have any questions, you can consult with your own legal advisor. As the reality of the situation sunk in, my mom stood up. Her voice was calm but carried across the room. Nathan, you need to understand. My husband had a weakness for gambling. He made debts, borrowed from people, from banks. I hope you'll be noble in this situation and help Brenda with these debts. It appeared as though Nathan and his mother had been struck. Their dismay soon gave way to indignation. Assist with debt payment? Do you really think this way? We are not reimbursed for any expenses we did not incur. Nathan's mother yelled, losing all pretense of decorum. Nathan disengaged just as quickly. Ellie, I want a divorce. In the divorce decree, we'll say that none of us is claiming any assets or money from the other. That concludes it. I felt a mixture of comfort and revulsion as I stared at him. All right, Nathan, I agree if that's what you want. We can prepare the divorce decree. My mother gave me a comforting grip and a reassuring gaze as they walked out of the office, dejected and furious. It will all work out, Brenda. It's best for us if they go. Following the execution of the divorce decree, Nathan and his mother were forced to reveal their actual selves one final time. They were snickering behind me as we were leaving the attorney's office. Nathan's mother grinned. Well, at least she will have $1 million in the hole, drowning in her father's debts now. Nathan chuckled and turned to face me. Well, Brenda, good luck handling that mess. I was laughing so hard I thought they were confused. Nathan scowled. What is the reason for your laughter? My mother intervened at that point, cool as always. Up until then, she had been silent and had only observed. Because you're completely wrong, Nathan. As you can see, I have always been in charge of handling our money. Bless his soul, your father-in-law wasn't the financial whiz that everyone believed him to be. Their arrogant looks wavered. What are you discussing? Nathan's mother lost it. With a hint of hardness in her eyes, my mother grinned. All of the profitable stock deals and investments were made by me. I am estimated to be worth $50 million. Brenda's inherited obligations are easily paid off by me. Nathan had a pale face. Are you serious? Are you for real? Yeah, Mom went on, and since I'm feeling generous, I've also decided to give Brenda a lovely home that she won't have to share with anyone, particularly not a gold digger. Their looks of disbelief were priceless. With his previous haughtiness gone, Nathan truly fell to his knees and stumbled, saying, Brenda, please, I didn't mean any of it. I was simply confused. I ignored him and his mother, who was still attempting to come to terms with the realization. I blocked their numbers from my phone as we were leaving. I didn't want to hear from them again after that. A few weeks later, word got around that Nathan was having problems. The BFFs were following him since his debts had finally caught up with him. He made an effort to connect, pleading for assistance through texts sent to pals in common. I remained steadfast. I told a friend to tell him I wish him the best of luck after he relayed his requests. That was the extent of my assistance to him.
What's going on that you wanted to talk? Well, it's a bit difficult to say, but I've seen someone who looks like you walking with your husband, but I think it was not you and not just once or twice. That day I went to work as usual and carried out my daily tasks. Then one of the employees told me that my husband was seen walking with another woman who resembles me. I have an older sister, Anna, who is 3 years older than me. I hardly ever communicate with her now, so I have no idea what she's up to. I haven't even told her that I got married. So I started worrying, thinking that woman might be Anna. This is because back in high school, Anna once stole my boyfriend. Since then, I've completely stopped speaking to her, but I couldn't help wondering if she's come to take something from me again. You've seen them multiple times? Yes, I thought it was you from afar, but the outfit wasn't the same as what you wore that day. So I felt suspicious. When I got closer, it turned out to be a different woman who just looks similar. I've seen them in the sales area several times, apparently on dates or something. There were moments when they held hands and hugged, and I couldn't keep silent any longer. So, I decided to report it as the company's president. I didn't want to bring personal issues into work, so I pretended everything was normal in front of the employees. But deep down, I was worried that I might be getting cheated on. However, at this point, Dennis's infidelity wasn't confirmed since there was no definitive proof. I decided to investigate a little. It's sudden, but I need to go on a business trip from next Monday, so I'll be away from home for 5 days. Is that so? I don't have any problems being alone anyway. Good luck. Yeah, thank you. When I mentioned that I would be away on a business trip, Dennis seemed slightly happy. Since I am not home that often, he can cheat if he wants to cheat. but perhaps he is happy that I will be completely absent. With those thoughts, I prepared something. Then Monday came around. On Tuesday morning, as soon as I woke up, I checked the footage from the surveillance camera, which I installed before I left. You're really cute. I love you. I love you too. To my shock, the surveillance camera captured my husband and sister together in the midst of an intimate moment. I immediately prepared to confront them and headed home. I'm home, I hear voices. Are you with someone? Wait a minute, why is everyone here, huh? I don't understand. And why are Dad and Mom here too? My name is Sarah, and I currently run a company that develops software systems and websites, and I also work as a software engineer. Ever since I was a child, I was good at math, worked hard at my studies, and went on to attend the top university in the USA. After graduating, I joined a major IT company, and within 3 years, I started my own business. About the project that the client asked us to change requirements recently, how is it going? I'm worried if we can keep up since it's quite a change. We've managed to implement some of the requested features, but we're still unable to implement some. Sounds quite challenging. We finished most of the coding, but we can't resolve the errors. Understood. Good. Once I finish the current task, I'll take over, so make sure to complete the other tasks. That client is our top priority. I graduated in the top 5 of my class at the university and was quickly recognized for my skills as an engineer at a major company. Shortly after, I became independent. I started as a freelancer and gained clients while working, and now I have grown to the point where I employ several engineers at my company. I truly enjoy my current job, and every day shines bright, no matter how busy it gets. It's proof that the company is doing well, and it boosts my confidence more and more. One day, I had dinner with one of the clients. You're the same age as me. I've heard about you from my seniors, and it's really amazing that you manage a company at your age. I respect you. Thank you. When you're young, you have a lot of energy, and I decided to keep challenging myself. It's still far from stable, so I'll keep working hard. It was a dinner meeting partly to greet the new contact representing the client's company. The new contact was the same age as me, and we shared similar hobbies. It was our first meeting, but we clicked right away and got along well. Then I look forward to continuing working with you. Outside of work, I hope we can go out to eat again. Likewise, thank you. The dinner went well, and I felt that I could build a good relationship with this person in the future. At the same time, I found myself slightly considering him as more than just a good business partner. His last words especially added fuel to my feelings. As a child, I was always studying, and even as an adult, I had only worked. Gradually, he became someone special to me. Will you go out with me from now on? I want to be more than just a business partner. I want to be someone special. Really? Are you serious? Yes. I'm always serious. I was just finishing a system that his company had ordered, and it was around the time of delivery that he confessed his feelings to me. I knew he liked me, as he often asked me out for meals, but I was nervous and couldn't find the right words. When he actually confessed, my heart raced, and it felt as if the world I was in wasn't real. But he was looking straight at me. Looking into his clear eyes, I was convinced that he was serious. For sure. I look forward to it. Good. I thought I messed up for a second there, but I'm happy it worked out. Because I was busy with work, I never thought I'd have a boyfriend, so this confession made me truly happy. In my heart, I whispered that I would build a long relationship with him. About a year later, he proposed to me. It was a long-awaited proposal, and I felt the happiest I had ever been in my life. I thought that the happy days with Dennis would continue after marriage, but my expectations were betrayed in a bad way. I quit. Quit? You quit your job? What does that mean? Well, you run a company, right? Then there's absolutely no need for me to work. We can live comfortably on your earnings alone. I was at a loss for words, in shock. Dennis's argument that we could live on my earnings alone wasn't wrong. but the problem was that he quit his job without discussing it with me. Why didn't you consult me about it? If you were going to quit your job, you could have at least talked to me about it. I don't feel good about being informed this way, after the fact. You're kind. So if I had talked to you about it, you would have told me it's okay to quit, right? The answer is obvious, so why bother with troublesome consultations? Dennis didn't seem to think what he had done was wrong at all, and made excuses without showing any regret. The problem wasn't the financial aspect, but that he had made such a major decision alone. Now, we are not just a couple, but a married couple. As a married couple, consulting each other on big decisions is a must. It's a problem if you don't consult with me properly. It's not as simple as whether we can live off my income or not. You're running a company and making money, so covering living expenses shouldn't be a big deal, right? We're a couple after all. In exchange, I'll help out with the housework. Dennis said this without any hint of remorse. It's as if he believed there was nothing wrong with his actions, and that I was being unreasonable for being surprised. However, I sighed at Dennis's lack of sense. It was my fault for not seeing this side of his personality before we got married. Since there's no going back after getting married, all I can do is ensure that no further problems arise as we continue to live together. From now on, when making big decisions, you need to inform me. We're not living separately after all. Just because I'm the president of the company doesn't mean I can use the company's money freely. You understand that, right? The company's revenue and my salary are separate things. I said I understand, didn't I? Stop nagging. I get it. You don't have to say the same thing over and over. Don't treat me like I am dumb, okay? If he truly understood, I wouldn't say anything more. Since he's not a child, I believe he understood why I was angry. Believing this, I decided to stop addressing the issue of him quitting his job on his own. However, his actions were completely contrary to his promises. He said he would help with housework in exchange for not working, but he did none at all. My company had implemented flex time, so I didn't leave the house until 10 a.m. Even at that time, he wouldn't get up at all, and yet he did nothing around the house and spent his days lounging, watching TV, or playing video games. My patience finally reached its limit. Hey, you promised you'd help with the housework. Why are you just playing around all the time? It's ridiculous that I have to come home from work and do everything. I quit my job because of stress, so this is a period of rest. I'm considering re-employment in the future, but that might become impossible if you keep this up, he said, almost as if he was threatening me. While he may have been stressed looking at his current situation, it didn't seem to be a serious issue. Every day, Dennis seemed to enjoy his time watching TV or playing games. I've seen many people stressed and struggled mentally, but he didn't fit any of those characteristics. Even so, if you have time to play games, you can do some housework, right? Like running the washing machine or the dishwasher. That's simple. We even have a robotic vacuum cleaner, so housekeeping should be much easier than usual. I'm not very good at housework in the first place. Well, I'll learn, little by little. Don't rush me. I was beginning to think it was useless to say anything more to him. It seemed like he only cared about himself and was indifferent to how I felt. Since there was no point in fussing over it any longer, I decided to hire a housekeeper. Work had been getting busier recently, and I simply didn't have the time to do household chores after work. If hiring a housekeeper would solve the problem, then so be it. Before I knew it, 5 years had passed. During that time, my company had grown significantly and succeeded in establishing 2 branches. I also started another company focusing on IT consulting, and now I have a company with about 2,500 employees. Then one day, what's going on that you wanted to talk? Well, it's a bit difficult to say, but I've seen someone who looks like you walking with your husband, and I know it was not you, and not just once or twice. That day, I went to work as usual and carried out my daily tasks. Then one of the employees told me that my husband was seen walking with another woman who resembles me. I have an older sister, Anna, who is 3 years older than me. I hardly ever communicate with her now, so I have no idea what she's up to. I haven't even told her that I got married, but I started thinking that woman might be my sister. This is because back in high school, Anna once stole my boyfriend. Since then, I've completely stopped speaking to her. But I couldn't help wondering if she's come to take something from me again. You've seen them multiple times? Yes, it was from a distance, so I thought it was you, the precedent. But the outfit was different from what you wore that day, which made me suspicious. So I went closer and realized it was a different woman who just looked similar. I've seen her in the Sailors area several times, probably on a date or something. There were moments when they held hands and hugged, and I couldn't stay silent anymore. So I reported it. Despite looking apologetic, I must appreciate her courage for coming forward with this information. Thank you so much for telling me. It's a family issue, so I'll resolve it within the family. But sorry for the trouble. From now on, you can focus on your work. I didn't want to create a heavier atmosphere, so I consciously spoke in a cheerful tone with a smile. Then her face gradually brightened up, and she quickly returned to her desk. As the president of the company, I didn't want to bring personal issues into the workplace. Even so, though, I continued to act normally in front of the employees. But inside, I was worried about the possibility of infidelity. However, at this point, Dennis's infidelity wasn't confirmed since there was no definitive proof. I decided to do a little digging. It's sudden, but I need to go on a business trip from next Monday, so I'll be away from home for 5 days. Is that so? No problem, I can manage alone. So good luck? Yeah, thank you. When I mentioned that I would be away on a business trip, Dennis seemed slightly happy. Usually, since I'm not at home, he can do whatever he wants. If he wants to cheat, he can cheat without me knowing. But since I am usually home at night, perhaps my complete absence from home makes him happy. With that in mind, I made certain preparations, and then Monday came around. As I told Dennis, I left the house for 5 days. However, the business trip was a lie. My real intention was to monitor Dennis's actions through a hidden camera in the house. He might bring his mistress home, and that was my target. Once I arrived at the hotel, I immediately checked the surveillance camera footage. Dennis was taking a shower and preparing to go out. I wasn't sure if he was going to meet his mistress, but I decided to watch his actions for now. After getting ready, Dennis left the house quickly, and while I continued to work, I kept checking the surveillance camera footage periodically. However, Dennis did not return home. So, I went to sleep. At midnight, Dennis hadn't returned yet, so I thought he might have stayed overnight somewhere. However, the next morning, as soon as I woke up, I checked the surveillance camera footage. You're really cute. I love you. I love you too. Shockingly, the footage showed my husband and my sister together, in the midst of being intimate. I was speechless with shock, but the next moment, my mind was filled with anger. The speculation that he might be cheating had turned into certainty. I could have stormed home alone, but before doing so, I decided to call various relatives. 30 minutes later, I was home. I hear voices. Are you with someone? I quietly shut the front door, trying to make as little noise as possible, and entered the house, knowing that the two were in the bedroom being intimate. I went up to the bedroom door, took a deep breath, and shouted loudly. Since I was monitoring the inside with the surveillance camera, I knew exactly what was happening inside. The moment they heard my voice, the two jolted, and then stared intensely at the bedroom door. Without hesitation, I opened the bedroom door and entered the room with the relatives I had brought with me. It seems you two are having quite a good time together, aren't you? Can you explain the situation so that all of us can understand? They looked like deer in the headlights. I made sure to control my emotions and handle the conversation smoothly. Ideally, I wanted to yell at them, but I knew that wouldn't be helpful. Wait a minute. Why is everyone here, huh? I don't understand. And why are Dad and Mom here too? After receiving a report from an employee that Dennis might be cheating, I independently conducted my own investigation. Though I couldn't catch any definitive proof, I discussed the suspicions with both my parents and my in-laws. They promised they would come immediately if anything happened. I called all my relatives and my contacts, and 10 or so of them gathered at my house to witness this chaotic scene. Do you both realize the seriousness of what you've done, getting involved with each other's family? What were you thinking? I was shocked when I heard there might be an affair, but to think it's Sarah's own sister, Anna. This has to stop now, both of you. This is unforgivable. How do you plan to take responsibility for this? Especially angry were both mine and his parents, who furiously yelled at Dennis and Anna. Facing the parents' furious expressions, Dennis and Anna seemed completely intimidated. They shrank smaller, looking down in silence. It was like watching a mouse cornered by a cat, and I felt profoundly miserable from the bottom of my heart. Wait a minute, let me explain. She came on to me. I told her we shouldn't do this because it's wrong, but it was like she forced me, kind of. Why are you lying? Yes, I initiated contact, but you were the one who got enthusiastic and invited me. You were enjoying it because you think I'm cuter than Sarah. Don't start lying now. Unlike you, I'm married. It was wrong for you to contact me in the first place. What they should be doing first is apologizing to me. Instead, they began to push the blame onto each other. Neither seemed to feel responsible for their actions, nor did they have any intention of apologizing. Some of the relatives who came were so appalled by their exchange that they were beyond angry. It's outrageous to blame others and shirk your own responsibilities. At this point, who initiated it doesn't matter. Don't you even have any remorse for what you've done? If you truly felt sorry for what you did, why don't you kneel and apologize? That's what you should be doing. After being scolded by both fathers, the two seemed to come to their senses. Though they couldn't get out of the bed because they weren't dressed, they began to apologize right there. I'm really sorry for letting it come to this. It was just a momentary lapse. Me too. It was like high school days, just a bit. Well, if he hadn't invited me, I wouldn't have done it. Do you even understand what you're being told? Stop making excuses and blaming others. Didn't you just hear that if you were truly remorseful, you wouldn't be making excuses? When I said this, they fell silent again. Perhaps I was mistaken to expect any sense of decency from people who could betray their family like this. I really am sorry about what happened. I'm seriously sorry. I'll apologize too. So, for now, can everyone please leave? Let's set another time to talk. Okay, no need for another time. I don't intend to see you two ever again, and I'll settle everything here. I didn't want to see these people again. Moreover, when there was a suspicion that Dennis might be cheating, I had already decided to divorce. If my suspicions were wrong, I would discard the divorce papers I had prepared, but if not, I would have him sign them right there. My mind was made up. Could you sign this divorce paper, please? What divorce? After all this, you thought we wouldn't get a divorce. It seems like you really don't understand the seriousness of what you've done. But do we really need to go as far as a divorce? Sure, what I did was wrong, but doesn't it seem a bit much? So let me ask you this. Are you saying that even though you cheated, you don't want a divorce and you want to continue being supported by me? You want me to pay the rent, the living expense, and even hire a housekeeper while you continue to live however you like? For a moment, Dennis's words sounded so absurd and shameless. They could have been a joke. I was doing my best to contain my emotions, but I could feel my anger rising. And Anna, I will be filing for emotional damages against you. Whether we're family or not doesn't matter. Paying damages for adultery is common societal sense. I don't have a job. How can I possibly pay any damages? Besides, you run a company and aren't short of money, right? What does my running a company have to do with this? Now, aren't damages meant to help someone live after a divorce? Then just demand it from this foolish man of yours. As a family, I shouldn't be involved. And like I said, he was the one who seduced me. If anyone is a victim, I am the one. Stop saying such petty things all the time. Their exchange was absurd and unbearable to watch. It was like talking to children despite being older than me. Why can't they engage in a proper conversation? Being family does not exempt one from paying for emotional damages for adultery. Their understanding of damages is also mistaken, revealing a lack of education. Grow up, Anna, who had always been praised for her looks, looked down on me. Because I was studious, she believed that being pretty was more important than being smart for a successful life. And look where that got her. There's no point in discussing further with someone lacking education. From now on, we will settle matters through a lawyer. Is that okay? A lawyer? Are you serious about this? Of course I'm serious. If you won't agree to the divorce and pay the alimony, then I'll just hire a lawyer. Remember, I am still a company's president, so don't underestimate me. Don't be ridiculous. Your company isn't doing well, right? That's why you're taking out your stress by bullying your family. What a pathetic person you are. My anger was nearly at its peak, but her last comment was unforgivable. She knew nothing of the effort I put in after graduating from university. Enough with the nonsense. Living off your wife or parasitizing your parents while mocking me? I manage a company with 2,500 employees, generating more revenue than you could earn in a lifetime. Most of it is the company's revenue, so I don't take much as a salary. What? You earn that much? Since you never showed any interest in me as your wife, I never told you. But don't expect much from the property division. I haven't saved much because I own a large asset, my company, and I only transfer enough salary for necessary expenses. I'm sorry. Can you forgive me now? I apologize too. I'm truly sorry. I'll change my ways and start working seriously, and I'll support you devotedly. Let's start over as a couple. After learning the reality of my company, they suddenly changed their tone. How much more could they belittle others? Just as I was about to take a deep breath and shout, my father intervened. Enough from both of you. If you don't stop now, I might lose it. Just decide now whether you'll sign the divorce papers or not. No need for further talk. That day, with their stubble, they looked even more intimidating under the glare of these large men. Both were completely cowed, overwhelmed by the pressure. Dennis reluctantly signed the divorce papers. I left the house with the divorce papers and our relatives. Thank you all for your support. I'll update you once the alimony and damage are settled. I deeply apologize for my son's behavior. As a father, I'm truly sorry. Please don't apologize, father-in-law. You weren't involved in this affair. I'm grateful that you stood by me until the end. Even so, I feel sorry because our son has done such a terrible thing. Both of them supported me to the end, and I needed to express my gratitude for that. After sharing my feelings with them, we went our own ways for that day. Afterwards, I contacted a lawyer and received detailed advice about claiming damages. Since then, I've been able to completely cut ties, and now, I am working hard every day as a single woman. Dennis struggled to find reemployment and faced financial difficulties immediately after the divorce. He's barely making ends meet by working part-time jobs and is trying hard to repay the debt he incurred to pay the alimony. As for Anna, she too was disowned by our parents and is desperately trying to get by each day. However, the situation they're in is entirely their own fault. They should deeply regret their actions and live with that regret going forward. As for me, I continue to lead the company as its president even after becoming single. The people I work with are trustworthy, unlike my ex-husband and sister. I plan to continue valuing such individuals. What's important in life is not how much money you make or how attractive you are. What really matters is building good relationships with people around. This applies to professional relationships, family, friends, and all relationships in one's life. Even without money or marriage, if you can build a life filled with love and trust for those around you, you can lead a joyous life. Going forward, I intend to cherish and care for the trustworthy people and family in my life.
I've never met anyone who was worse than my husband, Ben. I truly believe he was the worst man ever. It was his reaction that was especially shocking when he learned I was pregnant. I wish it had been Karen's child. Right in front of the new life in my womb, Ben let that slip. What followed was a mess of his excuses, and eventually, he pushed for a divorce. My name is Sandra Owen. I'm a 40-year-old housewife. Being a housewife allowed me to lead a stable life thanks to Tony, who remarried me. Originally, I had a former husband whom I was married to for 2 years. His name was Ben, and he was the manager of the cafe I often visited. Ben, recognizing me as a frequent visitor, struck up a conversation, and it led to a relationship. While we were dating, he seemed like any other man, and I had no bad impressions of him. Being the same age, we got along well. After 3 years of dating, we tied the knot. I became a married woman, and coincidentally, Ben changed his job and started working in a trading company. His salary increased significantly compared to when he was a cafe manager. However, after our marriage, his attitude completely changed. Ben, I want to go pay the rent tomorrow, can I get the money? After marrying Ben, I became a housewife at his request. I was supposed to manage all household chores and our finances. Each month, I would receive his pay slip and budget it for the month. Initially, I thought living on a single income would be tough. But surprisingly, we managed with just Ben's salary. Although I handled the money management, Ben never gave me access to the bank accounts or cards. So I always had to ask him verbally. Whenever I asked for money for the rent, Ben would reluctantly agree. You know, you have it easy. Just doing household chores and you can stay in this house. Saying this, Ben handed me an envelope, apparently fresh from the bank. Should I get a job then? And what about the house? I never thought the very person who asked me to be a housewife would criticize me for it. However, working in a company must be stressful. There are many men who can only vent at home. I accepted this as part of Ben's character, his weakness, and tried to interact with him with a smile. But looking back, the kindness I showed him now infuriates me. Our married life, although sometimes we had our differences, was more normal than I had expected. We weren't suddenly impoverished. I received a small allowance, and while we weren't rich, we lived moderately well. However, on the day of our 6-month anniversary, Ben didn't come home. Hey! It's our anniversary today. What time will you be back? I sent messages through the app, but they weren't read for a long time. Time passed, and before I knew it, it was past midnight. The elaborate meal I had prepared had completely cooled, and I reached my limit of sleepiness first. The next day, when I went to the living room, the side dishes that should have been wrapped were thrown in the trash. What? You came home? And what is this? This is awful. Holding back my sadness, I headed to Ben's bedroom. There, he was lying on the bed, still in his suit. Ben, wake up. I shook him gently as I spoke. After a while, Ben woke up. What, you're so noisy. He was clearly in a bad mood, but I decided to ask him anyway. The food I left on the table. Why did you throw it away? Huh? I don't remember. I came back drunk yesterday. Let me sleep. With that, Ben brushed my hand aside and fell back into a deep sleep. Looking at him, I suddenly felt empty. Moreover, at that time, I had something I hadn't yet told him. I had intended to reveal it as part of our anniversary celebration. But I couldn't even talk about it. I could feel it in my bones. Our marital relationship, although slowly, was cooling off. One day, after Ben had slept all day and I had spent my time doing household chores, I broached a serious topic in the evening when he woke up. What do you want to talk about? I want to play games. When I spoke to him, Ben clearly looked annoyed. It was disheartening for me too, but I couldn't give up here. Look, I didn't get my period last month, and it still hasn't come. When I said that, Ben stopped moving and turned to me with a muttering voice. What? That's what it means. Did you test? Did you take a test? Of course. It was positive. Finally, we're having a baby. I found myself smiling as I spoke. This child was something I had long desired. Living alone in this house without Ben was lonely. If I could raise a child, play with them. The possibilities seemed endless. However, Ben's response was not what I had hoped for. Are you kidding me? You're pregnant. What are we going to do now? Ben, you don't want children. It was my turn to be stunned. My previously smiling face froze, and I felt my heart trying to leap from my throat. Surely, I must be making a foolish face right now. Ben had said, "We'll think about it when the child is here." And I had thought he wanted children too. But reality was apparently not so simple. A child from you would never be cute. What did you say? As I stumbled over my words, Ben continued. I wish it had been Karen's child. Oops. Ben hastily covered his mouth, but of course, I did not miss that. What do you mean by that? I was fully alert to Ben's slip. Wait, don't tell me, are you cheating? Ben averted his eyes from my question. I'm asking you. I yelled out loud, causing Ben to flinch. Then he said, I just don't love you anymore. Really, there's no appeal in a housewife. I felt a violent shock and anger. It was none other than Ben himself who had asked me to be this unappealing housewife. So, you mean it would have been better if I had kept working, right? I was ready to give up my career to become your wife. Are you trampling all over that? Stop that. You're so annoying, always picking fights. So, there was no need for me to become a housewife after all. I was overwhelmed by anger and sorrow and could hardly keep my composure. Yet Ben responded indifferently, which made it all the more painful. If you hadn't become a housewife, who would have taken care of the house? I get stressed when the house is dirty. It was utterly ridiculous. We were exchanging words, but there was no emotional exchange at all. Surely, nothing I said would get through. Yet, I desperately returned words. Your heart is the dirtiest of all right now. Ben then bluntly pushed a selfish conclusion. If you think so, let's just get a divorce. It'll make things quicker. I was at a loss for words. Ben kept pressing. I won't be paying child support. I don't have the money. So, whether you have the baby is up to you. Can people really be this cruel? It's merciless. After all, we had been together for over 4 years, including our dating period. Where did it go wrong? I had tried my best to be by his side. But perhaps he was just fickle, a person who couldn't appreciate the ongoing everyday life. But now, it was too late. After the talk, Ben went out and came back with the divorce papers, already filled out on his side. As I silently stared at them, he pressured me to sign. Ben was serious. Was today the end of our marriage? As I thought this, I hurriedly ran my pen across the paper. Watching Ben's expressionless face as I signed, my pen sped up. Thus, my status changed from a married woman to a divorced, pregnant single. After the divorce, I faced harsh days. I was left with about $5,000, which I managed to get through property division. That was no surprise, as Ben had squandered our savings without my knowledge. I had confronted him about the affair, but he never confessed the truth. I thought about hiring a detective or a lawyer. But I didn't have the funds or the mental state to pursue it further. It was best to cut off the source of evil. That's how I rationalized the divorce to myself. With my environment drastically changing and only $5,000 in savings, which might last a month at best, I had to find a new home, pay the initial costs, buy necessities, and find a job. Every day felt like hell to me. But gradually, I started to see some good results. I was grateful to find a job quickly. I got hired as a receptionist at a high-rise condo because I could speak Spanish. I found a new place, moved in, and managed to save $500, though life was still tight. Even though I found a job, I was pregnant and didn't know how long I could work. During this time, I met someone. That was Tony, who would become my new husband. We often talked, mainly because I was the receptionist. How do I get to the bulky trash area again? Again? I chuckled. He had just moved in and still couldn't grasp the layout of the building. Go down to the second basement floor, move right. And then turn left, where you'll find the entrance. Thank you so much. I'm new to a high-rise condo, and it feels like a maze. After my explanation, he laughed sheepishly. His pure smile and the honesty in his demeanor were apparent. We talked more outside of work, and 3 months into my job, he asked me out. But I'm divorced, you know? And I'm pregnant. Tony was certainly attractive to me. He apparently ran a major electronics manufacturer, which manufactured TVs, air conditioners, and even the parts for the elevators in our high-rise condo. However, he was humble, which I found appealing. And his good qualities didn't end there. A child? That's fine. Actually, I'm divorced too. What? I was surprised as he explained. I'm infertile. My previous wife left me because of it. I see. But if we were to get married, could you love a child that's not your own? I felt I had asked a heavy question, almost like a stressful job interview. But he immediately responded. There's no reason I couldn't love your child. Hearing those words, I nearly collapsed to my knees. His name is Tony Simpson, a 43-year-old corporate president, 3 years my senior. A man from a different world, willing to lift up someone like me. Honestly, I was afraid to believe it. It felt like some sort of prank. But looking into his eyes, I realized everything. His eyes were sincere, with no deceit, focused solely on me. Though I had no evidence, if Tony was my husband, he would surely cherish me. Or perhaps, like Ben, he might change. I wrestled with this in my mind until the end. But strangely, I felt a comfort with him that I had never experienced before. I stopped overthinking and took his hand. Thus, I started dating him, and we remarried soon. Just a short while ago, I couldn't have imagined remarrying so quickly. But remarriage wasn't the goal. My due date was approaching, and as it neared, I fell ill. My stomach hurts. When we married, I had to move out of the newly signed rental immediately. But Tony covered the penalty and moving expenses. Now, I live with him on the top floor of the high-rise condo. Tony, who I thought was a bit clueless, turned out to be a resident of the top floor, which made me doubt whether he really should be my spouse. Yet, when I said my stomach hurt, he panicked. Are you okay? What do you need? Despite his cool appearance, I started seeing his flustered side. With Tony's support, I safely gave birth to a daughter. But then, a significant issue arose. The doctor had unexpected news. Mr. Simpson, please brace yourself. Your daughter has almost no vision. What? Tony and I froze, unable to comprehend the doctor's words as we looked at each other. The doctor continued with a sympathetic expression. Her vision won't lead to complete blindness, but it will be quite weak. Although initially confused by the doctor's words, we knew that our newborn daughter was not at fault. Definitely, abandoning her because she couldn't see was not an option. We were grateful she came into this world, and we named her Heaven. Since then, apart from her visual impairment, Heaven grew up without any issues and recently celebrated her 9th birthday. Tony, did you find what you were looking for? Today, we were supposed to go shopping together for Heaven's birthday present. Sorry, you two go ahead to the store. I'll catch up. Hearing this, I left the house with Heaven. Mommy, is Daddy coming? He'll come later, don't worry. Because her vision is limited, Heaven held my hand tightly as we walked. I was describing the path to her when someone suddenly spoke to me. Hey, aren't you Sandra? Turning toward the voice, I was shocked to find Ben Miller, my ex-husband who had left me 10 years ago. Ben, what are you doing in such a fancy neighborhood? What does it matter to you? I suddenly became aware of my shallow breathing. I couldn't seem to get enough oxygen. Sensing my distress, Heaven spoke up. Mommy? Who are you talking to? Stay quiet for a bit, Heaven. As I tried to calm Heaven, my ex-husband responded. Wow, is this the kid that was born? Why has she been squinting the whole time? That's none of your business. I retorted, and Ben paused for a moment before replying in a mocking tone. Huh, can't she see? Pfft. The kid's defective just like her mother. Laughing loudly by himself, passers-by stared at him with puzzled looks. I felt embarrassed being in such a situation. Troubled that I had dragged Heaven into this. This man always knew how to upset me. And as I was reflecting on this, a voice suddenly came from behind. Sandra, Heaven, what's going on? Turning around, I saw Tony standing there. At the same moment, Ben began to tremble when he saw him. Mr. Simpson. Hearing Ben's words, I was in disbelief. Tony asked him. Weren't you the one who came for an interview the day before yesterday, Ben? What are you doing here? I could tell from being with Tony often that his voice was displeased. To others, it might seem like a normal inquiry, but I couldn't be fooled. Ben was visibly shaken by Tony's words. Well, I was thinking about moving after getting an offer from your company. So I was checking out the area. Is that so? And do you think you'll be joining our company? The conversation seemed more like an interrogation by Tony. With each word, Ben became more flustered. The way he had behaved towards my daughter and me moments ago seemed like a complete lie. I thought the interview went well. Ben muttered weakly. Watching the two of them, I could piece together what was happening. Ben had come for a mid-career interview at Tony's company and was now waiting for the outcome. Tony had likely been one of the interviewers. As Ben honestly shared his thoughts on the interview, Tony's face smiled, but his eyes were cold. Taking a breath, Tony then looked straight at Ben and began to speak. Do you think someone who speaks ill of my own wife and child belongs in my company? With Tony's words, it became clear that our previous conversation had been overheard. What? Your wife and child? No, I didn't mean. Ben was stunned and immobilized by the revelation, but Tony did not relent in his pursuit. Why are you surprised? I've heard about your past with Sandra. I never imagined that the person applying to my company was you. At Tony's words, Ben was at a loss for words. His lips twitched as if he wanted to say something, but no sound came out. Additionally, he was visibly sweating profusely from his forehead. Well. Ben was completely cornered. In this situation, there was nothing he could say that would allow him to prevail over Tony. Tony's momentum was unstoppable. When you insulted my wife and child, it was as if you insulted me. Insulting me is one thing. But I will never forgive someone who speaks ill of my precious family. Ben let out an inaudible grunt and froze with his mouth open. For now, you're not hired. There's no need to discuss it further with HR. Tony coldly delivered the verdict, and Ben collapsed on the spot. He then started to mumble something, though it was unclear whether he was speaking to us or just to himself. I turned down marriage proposals and boasted to everyone about this job. I even bought a new car. And now, to think I'd fail an interview over a single insult. Observing his demeanor, I could tell that Ben still did not think he was at fault. But Tony felt the same way and said mercilessly, "If you cannot grasp the severity of that single offense, then you understand nothing. Please disappear forever from our sight." The normally gentle Tony who showed his kindness to me was not present now. Instead, he resembled a noble male lion standing alone to protect his pack. At the same time, I felt proud of him and reassured about my decision to marry him. "Please, never appear before us again," as Tony said. Ben gave no response. Seeing this, Tony raised his voice a bit more and shouted, "Well," and Ben responded in a frightened voice, "Right, I got it." My daughter, who had been sensing only the voices, clung to me, and for once, I was glad that her vision was impaired. It was not appropriate for my growing daughter to witness such a dismal scene. Ben, scolded by us, walked away with a soulless expression. His aura was one of complete despair, but I felt no sympathy for him. He had caused me much suffering. Frankly, I thought he deserved to suffer even more. Although Ben's sudden appearance caused a disturbance. Once it was over, Tony returned to his usual calm self. "Tony, thank you. Don't mention it." Tony smiled back at me as I thanked him. However, in a typical clumsy moment, he exclaimed, "Oh, I left my wallet," and had to go back home. I couldn't help but burst into laughter at his action. But I knew that with him, life would surely be enjoyable from now on.
"We're going to live together. You take the kids and get out after giving birth." I was living at my parents' house. I went back to our house to pick up something I'd forgotten. When I opened the door to the bedroom with the closet, I found Ethan and a young woman snuggled up together. "Ethan, what are you doing?" I asked. "It's obvious, isn't it? So you were cheating after all." "It's not cheating. I'm living here with Bella now," Ethan replied. Bella, the woman next to Ethan, also laughed and added, "Seeing them like this, I no longer had any desire to repair our relationship. Ethan's a high earner, unlike you. We're going to live a luxurious life on his earnings." "Got it," Bella continued confidently. "Though he only makes $1,000 a month," I thought, trying to process the situation. I was starting to forget the anger I felt towards Ethan for cheating during my pregnancy. I was too busy with childcare to dwell on it, but I'm not the kind of person to stay silent after being treated like this. The irony is that Ethan doesn't realize he was able to live because of me, and Bella believes Ethan is a high earner. This situation is full of things to point out. If they're that foolish, it makes things easier for me. I decided to thoroughly corner them, who are blind to reality. I am Elaine, 29 years old. I graduated from a fashion school and work in design. Ethan, 5 years younger than me, was still a student when we met. His part-time job was at a bar near my company, and we got acquainted because we often went there for company drinks. To me, Ethan was just another staff member, but he pursued me aggressively, leading to our relationship. At first, I was puzzled, wondering why me, being 5 years older. But I was swayed by Ethan's words. Age doesn't matter. You're attractive, malign, and decided to date him. Our relationship felt fresh. Ethan loves to have fun in large groups, probably influenced by his bar job. Ethan often threw parties and took me to various places. All of Ethan's friends were cheerful and sociable young people. I was worried about feeling out of place, but everyone welcomed me warmly. After dating for 2 years, Ethan became a working professional, and I turned 28, starting to think about marriage. However, since Ethan was still young, I shouldn't pressure him. I often hear that when women rush into marriage, it can cause the couple to break up. I was fretting over this when Ethan surprised me with a proposal. Of course, I was happy about the proposal, but I also had my doubts. It was my sister, Laura, who gave me the push I needed. Laura has always been smart and excels at her job. She's been a reliable person I could turn to for advice. You don't get chances like this often in life. Ethan is a bright and good guy. You should just go for it and get married. I couldn't imagine marrying anyone but Ethan. If I were to have children, I wanted it to be with him. You're earning well, so there's no need to worry about finances. Just be happy. My sister's words echoed in my mind. I married Ethan, but soon after our marriage, something unexpected happened. Ethan suddenly quit his job. I'd rather own my own place than work for someone else. I'll be working part-time at the bar. I used to work it for a while, but I need your support. I was puzzled, but his resignation was already in process. I emphasized to Ethan that this was a temporary situation and decided to support our household for a while. Ethan was happy and seemed to be studying hard about opening his own place. I found his determination endearing and really wanted him to succeed. This marked the beginning of Ethan's part-time life, and almost a year had passed. I wouldn't know because I worked full-time, but Ethan apparently wasn't taking many shifts, focusing instead on studying for his business. He was saving all the money he earned for his startup fund and didn't contribute to our household expenses. However, my body began to show signs of change. When I went to the doctor, I was shocked to learn I was pregnant. I was in no condition to support us anymore. Ethan, I'm pregnant. The part-time life has to end. Can you start supporting our family now? I thought he would be happy about the pregnancy, but his reaction was completely different. Ethan threw the glass he was holding at me. It shattered with a loud noise, and the drink inside splashed everywhere. What the heck? You said you'd support me. Was that a lie? It wasn't a lie, but things have changed now. Shouldn't we support each other in tough times as a couple? Don't mess with me. You just want to relax and not work because you're pregnant, don't you? Ethan labeled me as a lazy woman and wouldn't listen. He seemed completely ignorant about maternity or paternity leave. He looked off into the distance, imagining his future prospects. I'm going to have my own place someday. I can't be bothered with such trivial matters, Ethan declared. After spitting out those words, Ethan left the house and didn't return until after 5:00 a.m. He reeked of alcohol, and his clothes were dirty. In places it looked like he had gone out drinking and partying again. You came back drunk. Can't you take our child's situation more seriously? He didn't reply, and for the next 3 days Ethan didn't speak to me at all. His behavior was like that of a sulking child, and I was exasperated. Ethan wouldn't eat at home and often left at night. I handled all the household chores. One night after he went out, I noticed a woman's perfume scent on his clothes while doing laundry. It was always the same scent. I couldn't believe it but suspected infidelity. However, with my growing belly, I couldn't move freely. When I consulted my sister, she offered to look into it, and I gratefully accepted her help. Hello, Meline. Is now a good time to talk? Ethan's out, so it's fine, I replied. My sister seems surprised. He's out at this hour. Well, given the results of the investigation, it's not surprising. What about Ethan? It seemed she had tracked Ethan's activities on a particular day. Fortunately, he had been in busy areas, making it easy to follow him. According to her, Ethan had gone out at night, drinking and partying. Then he separated from his friends and met a young woman, eventually entering a hotel with her. The place where Ethan was fooling around was near the bar where he worked part-time, a familiar area to me. I was infuriated that he was doing whatever he pleased. It was the worst-case scenario I had feared. I was stunned and speechless for a while. However, the photos my sister sent were undeniable proof of Ethan's infidelity. The next morning, when Ethan returned home looking disheveled, I confronted him about it. He still had the same perfume scent on him. "Ethan, you're cheating, aren't you?" "I'm not cheating." Ethan's eyes were evasive, his body fidgety. "Stop lying. I'm not accusing you without evidence. Don't mess with me. If you keep talking nonsense, I'll hit you." Ethan grabbed his bag and left the house. In his tired state, he might be going to his lover's place. When I went into labor a few days later, Ethan still hadn't returned home. I had no choice but to get ready alone and took a taxi to the hospital with my hospital bag. From then on, I had no time to think about Ethan. The baby was born safely, and I found myself lying in the hospital bed. I was grateful that my parents, who lived nearby, took turns staying with me after giving birth. I was too busy with nursing and other things during this hectic time. Ethan called. The baby's born. Both mother and child are healthy. That's not what I'm concerned about. You'll be staying at your parents' place for a while, right? How long? Maybe 2 months. Why? I was puzzled, but Ethan said, "It's none of your business," and hung up abruptly. I stayed at my parents' house after giving birth. Ethan never came to see us. About a month after giving birth, as winter approached, I went back to our house to get a coat I had left in the closet. But when I opened the front door, I was struck by a strange sensation. The entire room smelled of that familiar perfume. It was unmistakably the same scent I had smelled on Ethan's clothes. The room was eerily quiet. I opened the bedroom door where the closet was. There I found Ethan and a woman closely entwined. "What are you doing?" "You can see what I'm doing. So you were cheating after all." "It's not cheating. I'm living here with Bella now." The woman beside Ethan giggled and added her comments. "That's right, we're living together now. You should take the child and leave." Seeing this, I no longer had any desire to mend our relationship. Ethan is a high earner, unlike you. We're going to live a luxurious life with his earnings. Understood? Bella continued confidently, even though he barely earns anything. Bella seemed completely unaware of Ethan's actual income. However, she began to dreamily talk about their future life together, and it was clear we were not on the same page. Anyway, it seemed I was an unwanted presence for them. If that's what they wanted, so be it. I quickly grabbed my coat and was about to leave. "Wait, take this with you. It's perfect timing." He handed me a divorce form, filled out in every section except mine. I made a quick decision. I'll fill it out right here. I completed the divorce form on the spot and handed it back to Ethan. "Here you go. Please send the rest of my belongings by courier later." Sure. Saves me the trouble. Bye. Don't come back." As I closed the bedroom door, I could hear their laughter from behind. I went back to my parents' house and told my sister about the divorce. When I mentioned Ethan being cozy with another woman in the bedroom, she seemed astounded. I actually found out something about Ethan's cheating. "What is it?" My sister recalled that during Ethan's drinking spree at the bar, he had mentioned a certain app, a matchmaking app that seemed a bit shady. "I registered on it." "Are you sure that's safe, sis?" "I'm single, and there's no harm in just registering. Plus, it's free for women." My sister did some research on the app and found out that Ethan was registered there. She showed me his profile on her smartphone. Ethan's profile picture was a design I had created for work. Curiously, he had listed his profession as a designer, seemingly using my career to appeal to women. He also greatly exaggerated his income. His profile was full of lies, just listing things that would make women happy, probably looking for affairs. He was such a shallow man. I regretted not realizing this before our marriage. Just then my phone buzzed. There was a message from Ethan. "I've already submitted the divorce papers. We're strangers now. I also filed the marriage registration with Bella. You're useless to me now." Following the message, a selfie taken at the office featuring Ethan and the woman was sent. My sister frowned upon seeing it. "What a terrible man, Melaine. You did the right thing by leaving him." "Yeah, I think so. My heart ached thinking of my child, but following my sister's advice, I decided to quickly sort out my personal affairs." A month later, as I was preoccupied with childcare and had nearly forgotten about Ethan, a flood of calls came from him. Picking up, I heard his panicked voice. "Hey, weren't the rent and heating bills being deducted from your account? I've just been notified that this month's payment hasn't been deposited. You're supposed to be managing your own life." "Now I've changed the direct debit details for you. What have you done?" "All the payments are failing, and I'm getting collection notices one after the other." Indeed, Ethan's income wouldn't support the lifestyle we had before, but his financial troubles were no longer my concern as we were now strangers. I responded calmly. However, Ethan still seemed to be counting on my earnings even after our separation. He had no intention of giving up the nice condo we had rented with my income. "Being stingy with money, you're trying to ruin me. I'm bringing Bella over to your place, so have the money ready." After the call, I asked my mother not to serve tea or anything when our guests arrived. Meanwhile, my phone kept ringing incessantly. It must be Ethan. How persistent. Checking my phone, I saw messages pouring in from mutual friends of Ethan and me. "Madeline, what's this about cheating and running away with the house money? Don't be petty. Just apologize to Ethan quickly. I trusted you, but to think you were that kind of person, that's just low." Apparently, Ethan had been spreading misinformation to our friends to suit his narrative. It was inexcusable. Even in anger, I showed the messages to my sister, contemplating a response when the doorbell rang. Ethan and Bella had arrived at my parents' house. Reluctantly, I led them to the living room where Ethan sat down arrogantly, with Bella leaning against him. My sister and I braced ourselves for the discussion ahead. "So, how are you going to make this right?" "Quite bold of you, considering your measly earnings," Ethan retorted. "Don't say that here," Bella interjected. "Ethan, what does she mean?" I remained silent and showed the prepared peace slips of Ethan I had been keeping. These slips were for tax calculation purposes. "Is this really your monthly income? This is less than a part-timer's." Ethan barely took any shifts. He claimed he was studying to start his own business, but all I saw was him playing around. He would go out drinking at night and sleep till noon. Ethan started making excuses. "This was just a bad month. I'm going to own my place soon, and you'll see. But with this, you can't even pay this month's rent. Weren't you a high-earning designer?" My sister showed Bella Ethan's profile on the app. "Is this what you're talking about?" "Yeah, we met on this app." "All of this profile is a lie." "What do you mean?" Bella looked shocked. "Bella, you've been deceived. That's despicable. Lying about your career. Don't make up things. You're just trying to manipulate Bella. Ethan was the one who had been manipulating her all along. It was astonishing how he continued with lies that were bound to be uncovered. Apparently, he had even pretended the condo was his. Bella believed him and moved in. "Being married to Ethan is a blot in my life, Bella. You're married to him now. Good luck with this loser." Bella, her face turning red with anger, slapped Ethan repeatedly. Ethan tried to fend off her slaps while desperately continuing his defense. She's too naive, believes anything. Meline, if you keep this up, I'll sue you for defamation. Naive, really, I've done some investigating. Near the place you two met, there's a nightclub. I went there again recently, and guess what I saw? You, Bella, entering the club. What? You must be mistaken. When you filed your marriage registration, you sent a photo. You were wearing the same coat. I couldn't mistake such a flashy girl. But Ethan couldn't seem to give up. Bella's profile apparently stated she worked in an apparel store. The flashy style is because she works in apparel. Stop being jealous, you old woman. Old woman, huh? Well, the club Bella has been entering isn't exactly reputable. They trick customers into paying for expensive extras. My sister showed the information site of the club, which unmistakably had Bella's photo. That's a lie. Sure, Bella's often not home at night, but she said it's because work runs late. Why don't you think back on what you've been doing to Bella, Ethan? You've been lying as effortlessly as breathing. Right now that I think of it, she does have a lot of luxury brands that you couldn't afford on your regular earnings. Suddenly, Bella shouted, "Ah, it's all out now." Yes, I'm the #1 girl at that club, and I'm known as Princess. I've got lots of men showering me with gifts. I couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. Ethan and Bella, both so deluded. Bella was everything you told me a lie. Likewise, if I knew you weren't a designer, I wouldn't have dated you, liar. A little embellishment on my resume is nothing compared to what you've done. What you've done is a betrayal to men. Ethan, even now, wanted to claim he was not at fault. Suddenly, Ethan started hitting Bella. Their ridiculous exchange was unbearable, and I finally spoke up. Both of you are the same, a pair of liars. Just get along with each other. In the end, I was the only one not lying. E looked at me with tearful eyes. Meline, I was wrong. Can't we start over? You're married now, Ethan. That's an impossible request, but Ethan was persistent. I'll divorce her. You and I were always meant to be together. Such a convenient story. I won't divorce until I find my next target. I'm staying put. I'm divorcing you. I want a peaceful life with Meline. Indifferently fiddling with my phone, I replied, I'm divorcing you. I want a peaceful life with Meline. Ethan and Bella continued their unseemly argument. Ethan wanted a divorce while Bella wanted to continue their current arrangement. After a while, as I set my phone on the table, Ethan's phone started ringing incessantly. He checked the messages and turned pale. What's this? All my friends are cutting ties with me. I had recorded the conversation and sent it to our mutual friends. Hearing the recording, they learned of Ethan's actions and unanimously turned against him. You're involving friends and lying. That's cowardly. Should I sue you for defamation? Ethan bit his lip and fell silent. Meline, you did the right thing divorcing such a man. What should we do now? My sister seemed almost amused. I'll certainly be claiming alimony and child support. Wait, I don't have that kind of money. That's fine. I've considered involving a lawyer. At the mention of a lawyer, Ethan looked like he wanted to run. With solid evidence of infidelity, he likely knew he had no chance of winning. I handed Ethan a note with the bank details for the transfer. All you want is money. What a vile woman. I want alimony, too. Falling for such a man was a complete loss. How much more are you going to mess up my life? Ethan, grabbing his bag's handle, started swinging it around. A vase on the table fell over, leaving the living room in a mess. My sister quickly took out her phone and made a call. Hello, police. I'm being threatened by a man. I'll give you the address. Hearing police, Ethan and Bella turned pale, quickly gathering their things and heading towards the door. I won't forgive you for this. Don't think this is over. What a case of sour grapes. Everything was his own doing. Don't ever show your faces here again, you despicable couple. I closed the door before Ethan and Bella could turn their backs. Wasn't calling the police a bit much, sis? My sister showed me her black phone screen, sticking her tongue out. Was it all an act to silence those fools? This was enough. We high-fived, sharing a moment of triumph after they left. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Friends were sending messages, apologizing for their doubts. At least the misunderstanding was cleared. They all decided to cut ties with Ethan. Ethan, having always been careless with money and frequently involved in petty borrowing and lending, had finally pushed his limits too far. His recent misconduct, coupled with his long-standing financial irresponsibility, seemed to be the last straw for many. Now, Ethan wouldn't be able to enjoy outings with friends anymore. As for me, my divorce was already finalized. I decided to proceed with claiming alimony, as it can be requested even after the divorce. Ethan was working hard at his part-time jobs. One day I received a call from Ethan. "Milline, help me. Bella won't leave. She has nowhere else to go. No matter how much I beg, she just won't budge." "So you two didn't get a divorce?" "I want a divorce, but Belle seems to have no other place to go. She refuses to move, no matter what." The irony was not lost on me. Ethan, who wouldn't work and left so quickly, was now facing the opposite situation. "Weren't you two in love and got married? Try to make it work." "I can't stand being with such a liar anymore. Bella is openly using dating apps right in front of me. She dresses up and goes out at night, and she doesn't contribute to the household financially." I couldn't help but suppress a laugh. Bella's actions were unexpected, but it seemed she was giving Ethan a hard time. "Poor you, but I endured similar treatment from you, even through my pregnancy. Why don't you try a bit harder?" "Come on, Bella takes all the money. Please help me." Ethan's voice was whiny. I felt nothing but a visceral disgust for him. I firmly refused his plea for help and hung up. According to a mutual friend, Ethan was later fired from the bar. He couldn't resist flirting with a regular customer. The manager was furious, reminding Ethan of all the nurturing he had done, and threw him out without a word. With almost no employment history, Ethan struggled to find another job and eventually resorted to debt. Unable to borrow from reputable lenders, he fell into a cycle of borrowing from shady sources to pay off other debts. Meanwhile, Bella continued living in Ethan's house, going out to nightclubs and meeting men. Bella had nowhere to live originally and targeted Ethan, seemingly well off, leading to their marriage. She seems to rely on men for her lifestyle. She is now desperately looking for a man with better prospects. Despite Ethan's pleas, Bella refuses to leave, resulting in endless arguments. I mercilessly demanded from Ethan $660,000 in alimony for his infidelity, along with child support. So far, he has been making the payments on time. My sister's bluff and threats seem to have worked effectively. Ethan occasionally calls asking for help, but I ignore him completely. His troubles seem minor compared to the pain I endured. With the support of my parents and sister, I'm comfortably raising my child. My single sister adores the baby, who is growing up healthily and happily. I cherish the ordinary moments of parenting, singing with my child, playing in the bath. These are precious and enjoyable times. Starting next month, I plan to place the child in daycare during the day and return to work on a reduced hours basis. I love my work and am excited to return. My company is very understanding and accommodating of my situation as a single mother. I look forward to cherishing the things I love while embarking on a new journey in life.